Today we celebrate Father's Day, Pride Sunday, and it's also Juneteenth, so we'll throw all those three in. There was a conference, and the question before the conference was, when does life begin? And the first speaker was a Roman Catholic priest, and he got up and he said, the church teaches and I believe that life begins at conception. And he sat down. Next speaker was a Protestant minister. He stood up and he said, the Bible, after a careful reading of the Bible, I have determined that life begins when the child takes his first breath. And he sat down. The last speaker was a Jewish rabbi. He got up to the microphone and he said, I believe life begins when the kids leave home and the dog dies. Now, there's a lot of truth in what the rabbi said. Every single study they've done says the two happiest times in a marriage are before the children are born and after the children leave home. I'm serious, that's true. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm anti-child, however. Between the two of us, my wife and I have 6 children, okay? When we got married, she had 3 teenagers, I had 2 teenagers, and we had a child together. We named our youngest child Faith because after 5 teenagers, having another child is truly an act of faith. Now, it's difficult to be a father. It's difficult to be a parent. There's a lot of stuff they never tell you. One of the things they never talk about is the suffering part of love. You know, when your child is ill or hurting or whatever, and there's nothing you can do to fix it. And you have to just stand by and watch this person that you love suffer. For my wife and I, that's a very difficult subject because 2 of our children suffer from pretty severe mental illness, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. And so my heart goes out to all of you parents out there. The other thing that they talk about, that they don't talk about is in the suffering part of love, is when your child is going down a road, and you know where that road leads because you've been down there, and you tell them, don't go there, and they keep going. And you just have to watch them go. My second oldest child didn't cut any classes in high school, but she didn't make any classes on time very often. And so at the end of high school, she had 2 choices. She could go to Santa Rosa JC or Santa Rosa JC. Those were her 2 choices. She went to Santa Rosa JC. She found a subject she loved, economics, and somehow something in her a switch got flipped. Somehow she decided she wanted to get an education because she wanted it, not because her dad was on her case all the time about it. She came home after the first semester and she said to me, Dad, she said, you know, if you just go to class and do your homework, you get really good grades. I fell on my knees, I threw my hands in the air and I went, hallelujah, Jesus. 4 years I've been telling this kid this, and she finally heard it. And she finally heard it. It's difficult to be a parent. It really is. And I'm firmly convinced that if your child knows that they are loved, if your child knows that they are loved, that that's 90% of the battle. That most of the rest is just window dressing. It's just window dressing, okay? Now, I'm not the most aware person in the world, especially when it comes to being aware of my own privileged place in society, right? And I had an awakening when my 2 oldest daughters were young, and they wanted to buy a little doctor kit for Christmas. And so I went to about 5 or 6 different toy stores. And I looked for one, and I couldn't find one that didn't have a picture on the front where the little boy was the doctor and the little girl was the nurse. Now, I have nothing against nurses at all. My wife is a nurse, and my youngest child is a nurse. Nothing against nurses at all, but I just didn't want society telling my children, this is what you have to be. You can't be this, you have to be this. I did not want that. And I've had other smaller awakenings as time goes on. I found out the only difference between little boys' blue jeans and little girls' blue jeans is the boys were cheaper, better made, and had pockets. Okay? Things that you don't realize. Things you don't realize. But I don't know if any of you have seen the musical Fiddler on the Roof. It's a story of this Jewish milkman. He has one cow, right? He milks the cow in the morning and pushes his cart with the milk on it into the village to sell the milk. And he has a wonderful spiritual life. As he's pushing this cart into the village, he's talking to God constantly. God, if money is a curse, could you curse me just a little bit? You know? And his name is Tevye, and he has 5 daughters. And it's all about tradition. And it's all about pushing boundaries and how Tevye's boundaries get pushed and pushed and pushed, and the traditions keep getting broken and broken and broken. So Tevye arranges a marriage for his first daughter. Older man, the town butcher, rich man. So his daughter will never want for anything if she marries him. He tells his oldest daughter that he's arranged this marriage, and she bursts into tears. He goes, "Why are you crying?" She says, "Because I'm in love with a tailor." He says, "The tailor doesn't have 2 cents to rub together." She says, "I know, Papa, but I love him." And so Tevye breaks the contract, and she marries the tailor. His next daughter falls in love with a Marxist. And they come and they say to Tevye, "Papa, we're engaged. We're going to get married." He says, "You're not going to get married. You haven't asked my permission yet." His daughter says, "Papa," she says, "you don't understand. We're not asking your permission. We're telling you we're getting married." Again, the boundaries get pushed. And then his third daughter falls in love with a revolutionary, and he's a Christian. And she comes and tells her father that she's getting married, and he forbids it, and she gets married anyway. And his boundaries keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and he keeps getting more and more opened up. And that's sort of what my life has been like in a lot of ways. When I graduated from seminary, if you asked me whether homosexuality was a sin, I would have said yes. But in the context that we're all sinners, and the only group of people that ever gets into heaven are sinners. And then God is so good. God is so wonderful. Over the course of the next several years, God slowly and gently changed my mind. One of the things that happened to me is that in the middle of my first marriage breaking up, 2 people, 2 gay women, were so kind to me at a time that I needed kindness more than anything else in the world. And then there were the 2 gay guys at ECA that helped out with the youth group. They were in their 20s, and the youth just really related to them, and they related to the youth. And the kids thought nothing of the fact that they were gay. It didn't bother the kids at all. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but God was preparing me. And what God was preparing me for is that I found out that one of my children is gay. My second oldest daughter is gay. And the way I found that out was that her sister had a blog online, okay? If you're in your 20s and you want to put down all your intimate thoughts and you want to put them down online in a blog, don't tell your parents where it is, okay? My oldest daughter had this online blog, and she said, "Dad, I've got this online blog. You ought to take a look at it." I did not want to know that she had a hot date the night before. That's information that I did not want to know. But one entry in there kind of jumped out at me. And that was, she said, "I spent the day with my sister's girlfriend." And I said, oh. And so I was able to get in touch with her sister, and I was able to tell her, "Hey, I understand you're gay. I want you to know that that doesn't change anything. I'm fine with that. That you're my daughter, I love you, and I'll always love and support you. God is so wonderful in that way. Just so wonderful. And matter of fact, she and her girlfriend, as soon as they could, went to San Francisco and got married. And she has the happiest marriage of any of my children. She has the happiest marriage of any of my children. And then our youngest went to college at UC Merced. And she took a gender studies course. And in that course, they had to do something to cross gender boundaries. And what she did is cut all the hair off her head. And I didn't think of anything of it at the time. And she graduated with a degree of sociology. She moved up to Washington State and did some anti-poverty work. That ended, and she got a job as a veterinary assistant and realized that blood and guts and gore and things like that didn't bother her, and she decided, hey, maybe I'll become a nurse or a doctor. That sounds good to me. And so she did some exploration, and she talked to doctors, and she talked to nurses, and she found out nurses seem to have, on the whole, a much better work-life balance than doctors do. And so she decided to go to nursing school. As a matter of fact, she passed her RN exam last year, and right now she's studying to be a nurse practitioner. But she came back to California, and then she called her mom and I one day, and she said, I've decided I'm non-binary. I said, okay, what does that mean? She said, I don't fully identify as male, and I don't fully identify as female. She said, and rather than have you call me she and her, I'd appreciate it if you'd call me they and them. That those are the pronouns I'd appreciate your using. I said, fine, that sounds like a small thing to do. And then later on, they told us, I'm going to change my name from Faith to Felix. Felix is Latin for joy. And now she's begun the transition. She's begun to transition from female to male. I don't understand it. I really don't. But if calling them Felix, and if using they, them pronouns are important to them, then I'm really happy to do that. As a matter of fact, one of the things they found, and I just read this yesterday, 1/3 of transgender people who don't have the love and support of their parents and their families attempt suicide. If their parents and families love and support them, that drops to the regular percentage among the population. And those things seem small to do. Those things seem small, but they're important. Again, just love and support. You know, a friend of mine, one of my tennis buddies, we'll call him Chuck, because his name's Chuck. Chuck called me a couple of weeks ago, and Chuck said, Steve, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. He said, I'm going down to my grandson's graduation from college. He's graduating from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And I said, oh, yeah, the Yale by the jail. I know that. And he said, and the family just told me that when he walks across the stage, they're going to call out a different name than the name he was given at birth. And he said, what do I do? I said, what has he asked you to do? Has he given you some pronouns to use? Has he said, I'd rather be called by these pronouns? He said, well, I really don't know. And I said, Chuck, just love him. Just talk to him and find out what's going on with him and just love him. That's all you have to do. And then Chuck said, well, yeah, but he's majoring in aeronautical engineering and he might not go in the field. And I said, Chuck, what did you major in as an undergraduate? He said, electrical engineering. I said, did you become an electrical engineer? Well, no, but, I said, Chuck, he's trying to figure out who he is. And he's trying to live his life as authentically as possible. That's what he is trying to do. And I said, it's not easy. It's not easy. You know, my daughter is transgender. And, you know, it's hard for me because this young, beautiful, intelligent woman is no more. And instead, there's this young, beautiful, intelligent person that I don't know quite as well. Now, that's my perspective on the whole thing. My youngest child's perspective is much different. They told me the other day, they said, you know, my whole life, I've never felt quite at home inside my body. I've always felt like something was wrong, that I didn't fit in somehow. And now, for the first time in my life, I feel like I belong. I feel like I am becoming who I really am. That's what's happening. And so, what Chuck, I think, was really afraid of is that the world does not treat people who are different very well. And there's a huge backlash across the United States right now against people who are gay and transgender. And it takes tremendous amount of courage to live the life that you believe you're called to live and to be the person that you believe you're called to be. That, for me, is what pride is all about. I'm not proud that one of my children is gay. It just is what it is. I'm not proud that one of my children is transgender. It just is what it is. As a matter of fact, I'd rather not have them be that way because they're going to have a much tougher time in life. But what I'm tremendously proud of is that they're trying to live their lives honestly, authentically, and lovingly. That's what God calls all of us to do, to simply live our lives honestly, authentically, and lovingly. Amen.